Okay, so last week I mentioned this, and I had a sketch that was up on the board, and I sort of diagrammed out how you might accomplish something like this. So this was kind of your objective over the weekend, was to just ponder, and sort of maybe do some sketches in your sketchbooks and stuff about how you might accomplish certain goals, hypothetically or theoretically, in the Grasshopper environment without actually doing it. And this process is going to be important for you guys in your final, because I will ask you to have your design concept, generally speaking, done before you actually start modeling it. Okay, so your final presentation or final board or whatever we do is going to incorporate both the model, right, like an image of the model, like what you've designed like this, and sketches and diagrams. Okay, those are the two components I'm going to be asking for. Okay, that's why this is also important. But basically, like, what you're trying to produce here can go a number of different ways. I'm going to kind of take some shortcuts just for the sake of it being easier for us to get through this a little faster. So let me draw like a circle. And also, I'm not really going to design anything specifically to scale. So let's say we had something like this, and we kind of tilted the top piece a little bit, so it kind of has like a skew. So what I'm going to do is reference both of those curves, but I'll do it separately so that I can see what's going on. So I'm going to say for the bottom one, set one curve, and I'll select that one, and then I'll set the top one up here. So there are some things I could do. I could just loft the two, but remember the band in the middle doesn't really kind of jive the same way. So let me do, I'll show you the loft real quick. Not extrude, not network, loft. So you can sort of plug it in like that, but that's not necessarily going to give you what you want, right? You want something that's going to sort of pull in the center, like a band in the center. So instead of loft, you'd probably want to use something like, some center points, and then maybe create like a pipe on this thing. But the difference in this is that when you're doing like a set of circles along this, let's go to a line. Draw a line from here to here, right? We can set a set of circles that are sort of happening at all levels, and then we can set our loft to carry through all of those radius parameters that we want to use. So for this, I guess I could use something like perp frames, and that would make it pretty easy. So, well, actually I don't want to use perp frames. I want to use point on curve because this is going to allow me to have separate points that I can use to control this thing. So I might be able to make 3 intermediate curves, points I mean, and let's start one at like 0.25. Okay, notice how that one actually went up top. So that's important to note that that's going to be the one on top. This one is 0.50-ish, and then this can be like 0.75-ish. So we have 1, 2, and then 3. But then we also have the top point and the bottom point. So that's like, this and this. So if I wanted to loft all of those together, I just need to make sure I do it in order. So I can do surface, freeform, loft, and let's just go with, oh, sorry, I need to build circles first, my bad. So let me go to curve, primitive. I'm going to do just a regular circle because I don't need it to be in a particular orientation. So I can say I'm going to put one here and copy and paste these things down there and here. I'm going to tighten that up too, actually, because these are the circles. And then we just need the radius. So let's say 0 is less than, I don't know how big these things are, but let's just say 50. There we go. All right, so maybe something like 16, and then this one can get close, maybe 13, and this one, we're probably going to want this one to be the same, so I'll make that 16 as well. Okay, so now I've got my top curve, my second, third, fourth, and then fifth curve. So these are going to be the elements that I loft. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So what questions do you have about this before I proceed on to anything else? No questions? All right, well, that's pretty simple. But what you also need to know is that like you can change this and sort of form find a couple of different ways. You will have to calibrate this so that it works well with like what you're doing structurally. Because I mentioned before, remember what I was saying about the structure actually being tied to the top curve and the bottom curve, not necessarily these intermediate circles. So we can manage that a few ways. If we wanted to create one that was strictly based off of the two curves, we could. Let me try and do this. Well, maybe I'll stop the video where it was, and then we'll go into the next one. Yes?
Is it lofting from, what point is it lofting in the quadrants?
What's that?
The loft where it's connecting?
Yeah.
Is it, like where is it, so like in Rhino, when I do loft, it's like this point.
Oh, yeah. So you need to filter them all into, that's a line, not a loft.
No,
Yeah.
but I'm saying like if I just did it with loft coming on Rhino,
What about it?
like
You made separate circles. The top loft connects to the top circle, and then the top circle.
Yeah, these are separate.
but where does it connect to?
The top circle connects to the.
I'm confused. If you loft it in Rhino, it's just gonna create a tube just like it did in Grasshopper,
Yeah.
like that.
Okay, say if it was a square.
If what was a square?
So instead of a circle, we did a square.
Easy. Yeah. You just
Or
have
maybe like a lot of polygons.
like this.
And then like the sides.
You could loft these.
But see it starts from from the corner.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But like so
I don't get. What's your question? Okay. Well, we can revisit that maybe on the side. Okay. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to jump into like the totally tubular thing. All right.